I'm not sure if I'll end up being an architect, but one thing that I'm very certain about it is that I want to stay in the creative industry. Being an architecture student is like waking up every day to uncertainty. Waking up to the fact that, wait a minute, we don't even wake up because we don't even sleep in the first place. I'm not trying to be negative here, I'm just trying to be real. It has been so long I wanted to make a raw, honest video about life as an architecture student. As someone who entered architecture with a lot of love for the field, as someone who entered architecture after many days spent on researching and talking to architects to know how it is to be one. I was pretty confident that I wanted to be an architect. But once I started my journey, every day was just a piece of uncertainty. And don't get me wrong, this is not me saying I don't like architecture or complaining about it. Actually, I'm so in love with it and I've been enjoying every bit of it. But this has to do with the fact that I love architecture as a hobby, but will I love it as a profession? It has to do with the fact whether or not I want to choose architecture as a profession, whether or not I'd enjoy it as a lifetime profession. And this uncertainty is not bad as you all might think. It can actually be good. It can be a way to improve yourself. Because before architecture, I thought if I read a lot about something and do a lot of research about it, or if I think about something deeply enough, then I'd be pretty confident to make a decision about it. But as soon as I started my life as an architecture student, I realized I cannot decide by thinking. I can only decide by doing. And this doesn't only apply to architects, but can apply to everyone in almost every aspect of their lives. How many times you thought about something, maybe even for days, in order to make a decision, and once you made that decision and put it into practice, you came up to the conclusion that, hey, it wasn't as I was thinking about it. So the fact that I'm not certain about whether I'd end up being an architect or not is not something negative at all and should not be seen that way. In reality, it's a very positive thing because I can only decide by doing. Once I become an architect, once I worked as an architect and lived as an architect and did what an architect does, that's when I will know if that's really what I want. Yes, we can argue that as an architecture student, we are still doing what an architect does. We design projects and do all of these things just like an architect. But let's be honest here, when it comes to architecture, outside world is another thing. Dealing with clients, working as a group, leading projects, and many more things are another different world that can only be discovered by living in that world. So if you ever wake up, sorry again, I know you don't even sleep at all, but if you deeply started to ask yourself, if this is really what I want, if this is really how I want to spend my life, do I really want to be an architect? If you ask these questions, most likely you will not come up with a rigid, concrete answer. So I'm just here to tell you, chill, because it is totally fine. Once you start doing it, you will get the answer. And if you're like me, which I'm not sure if I'll end up being an architect, but one thing that I'm very certain about it is that I want to stay in the creative industry. Whether that means being an architect, an interior designer, a graphic designer, a fashion designer, a product designer, a furniture designer, or even a photographer. You name it, whatever it is. I want to stay in the creative industry, and that certainty in itself is sufficient for me.